agreed to sit down in the auditorium balcony. Of course, he heard the message. I said he had heard the message. I don't know whether that had needs to be there. When you read it, you'll know. Then he went down afterward to talk to the minister. We were planning the trip to Canada. The minister came to me and said, "Your husband does not know about this church, but he does know the Bible." Wound up, Lorne was baptized and delved to, do I want to say each teaching or every teaching? How do I word that?
I thought it sounded pretty good the way it was.
Lorne was baptized and delved into each teaching. We attended church every Sabbath. Later on, during the move to Canada on a Sabbath, the horses were unloaded and put in a corral while we attended the closest Sabbath service. That's enough on that. And there's no pictures, I guess, for that page. Boy, my fingers just don't work. With our horses multiplying faster than the feed, Lorne began considering the knee-deep pastures he heard about in Canada. He decided to move our operation to British Columbia. He purchased a huge 22-wheel outfit with a big 220 Cummins engine. He checked it over completely to make sure it would function well. He then built a body on the long wheelbase tractor. We had been granted, and this isn't probably where that should fit in, but I don't know where to put it. We had been granted immigration status. So any place you see that would work better, just put it in.
Okay.
Because I say, that wasn't a true Hall favor, it's a Fruhoff.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how you spell Fruhoff.
Okay.
He then built a body on the long wheelbase tractor. We had been granted immigration status. The Fruhoff trailer was loaded with mares and a foal compartment next, then a yearling compartment. The first stop, the animals were unloaded for rest and feed, was Casper, Wyoming. The next stop was the Canadian border, where their papers were checked. I drove the pickup and horse coach with a couple of stallions. Lorne and I would arrange meetings along the route. One night, or I should say, the wee hours of the morning, I was driving in a rainstorm and began to see warning signs, flooded areas. Peering out between the windshield wipers, I missed my turn and landed in a large truck warehouse depot. It was deserted, so I figured I could turn around. As I began to move forward, I saw nothing but water. I saw the big rig would have to be, no, it isn't big. I saw the rig would have to be backed up, and that was an impossibility for me. There was a converter between the pickup and the horse trailer. I made a number of attempts, but to no avail. Suddenly, a semi-truck came down the ramp, pulled down by the dark building, and the driver disappeared. I got out of the pickup to check the load and saw another set of lights coming down the ramp. Oh, it was our Kenworth and the genius who would set things right. The old can-doer got out and backed that swivel-jointed contraption like it was kids' stuff, and we were on our way again. Next stop, British Columbia. Are we still in line?
It's great. That was a good story.
Is the story all right? All right. Didn't write much in Canada. We did make it to Canada, but the Canadian climate proved too hard for the can-doer, so he decided to move to Jordan. Yes, Jordan in the Middle East. A horse sale was held, and Lorne flew to Pella in Jordan with some top-bred horses. I bet that's where I want De Niro's picture. When the ranger-bred horses were flown from Canada to Jordan, the horse pens were just another adventure for the old Candour. An Arab boy and I cleared the rocks on the ground selected to be used for the pens. The ground was completely covered in rocks when we started, so there was a lot of cleaning to be done. Lorne then dug steps down the steep bank to a spring for access to water. The larger rocks were used to build walls for terraces. Now that's where I want the picture of those good terraces. On the terraces, we planted alfalfa seeds covered with burlap to keep them wet while they were sprouting. Lorne drove the truck to Oman and returned with hundreds of feet of pipe. That pipe would be used to build the enclosure pens for the horses. Well, that's where we have those horse terraces. Later, Lorne presented King Hussein of Jordan with the top-bred stallion Rio de Janeiro. That's where we want that picture, somewhere in there. But I don't want to give up Reen and Lorne. Lorne later presented King Hussein of Jordan with the top-bred stallion Rio de Janeiro and mare and some offspring. Lorne liked the desert climate, and the Arabians welcomed him with open arms. I flew over later, and we lived in the desert. Wars were always going on, and King Hussein was concerned about our safety. Lorne could see that our safety was a real concern for the king. So after 3 years in the desert, we decided it was time to leave. Oh, that's the picture of De Niro there, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going back to the desert, but not to the last one yet.
No.
There's still more.
2 more pages. You're doing great.
You know this story better than I do. We picked up and moved back to America with a few of our horses. In looking for a place to settle, we encountered Dr. Moon's ranch in Arizona. We would be able to live in our trailer. There was a huge pond where the spring water had been diverted around it. Lorne was able to turn the water back into the pond and stock it with tilapia. You know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
We still own the incubator. I don't know if we did. I just put that in because where did we get those geese?
Well, yeah.
Incubator, so we were able to hatch geese for the pond. We actually used the geese, and we did pick their feathers. I remember that. And there was a big picture of the geese up there.
Yeah.
And we picked their feathers for a feather bed and some pillows. The ranch was already producing fruit and was a very nice place to live. After about 7 years, Dr. Moon's father passed away. Dr. Moon had run into some unrelated legal complications because some papers had not been properly signed. Fearing that he might have trouble down the road with us living on the land, he asked Lorne to sign some papers. Lorne refused, saying, "If my word has been good enough over the past 7 years, my word hasn't changed." So stubborn guy.